every single one of those guys, and I think I did, say it's around 40 calls, every single time the girl was a scammer.
SAR Experience.
Привет and greetings from a not so chilly Odessa, Mama in Ukraine today. As you can see behind me, the snow has disappeared. It is kind of late January when I'm filming this, so we had a lot of snow. It was extremely cold. In fact, I came down here to the port to film a vodcast about 4 or 5 days ago, and basically I got close to frostbite. I got frost nip. I learned a new word. Basically, because it was so cold here with the wind chill. It was like minus 12, minus 13, and then with the wind chill, and obviously been by the sea, the humidity, it felt closer to minus 25. So learned a valuable lesson about the winter in Ukraine. And in this video today, in this podcast, you are going to learn some useful lessons about online scammers, because this city, even though I love it, is scam central. Scam central for online romance scams. So you probably even see memes. I know for online scams you have the meme about the Nigerian prince who just really needs you to help him get his money out of Nigeria. Have a whole series of scams that are centered around the former Soviet Union, particularly Ukrainian and Russian women. Basically a lot of guys get scammed a lot of money. I've done a lot of other content about this topic. I'll link them as usual, all the other videos below in the description, also up some occasionally on cards here while you're watching. Go watch those afterwards if you're more curious to learn about the particular case of guys who got scammed out of even up to over $300,000 by a Russian Instagram model. Very famous case that happened a year or two back. I've done a lot of content about this topic, but you know, over this festive period with also a bit of a lockdown here in Odessa, I had more time to reflect on who I've helped over the last couple of years. And the thing that struck me is that I remember when I first started to help guys via consulting calls back, you say late 2018 through 2019, and less so in 2020, with respect to vetting girls online who they've been talking to over the internet, that they met on either a free dating site, but more likely a site where it was a PPL site, which is a pay-per-letter site where basically you're paying for communication, or some sort of matchmaking marriage agency site that isn't very genuine in trying to help the guys, and there's a lot of scamming going on those as well. There are some more genuine matchmakers, of course. If you look around in the space, you're going to find them. Also, I did some interviews with those, and I'm going to, as always, just link everything below in the video description. And I realized something very disconcerting. All these guys who obviously paid me for my time to do the research and investigate these women, also advise them about, analyze their behavior and tell them whether, in my opinion, they were a scammer or highly likely to be a scammer, or if they were sincere. Every single one of those guys, and I think I did, say it's around 40 calls, every single time the girl was a scammer. Every single one. There's actually another, I saw on another YouTube channel in this space where they were talking about some very high percentage they had when they do scammer checks. I think it was like 98 or 99%. And that was like historic data. And I think it's probably even gotten worse. Now it is a little bit leading in the data in the sense that, well, if a guy who goes and gets a background check done on a girl, it's more likely to be guys who are pretty suspicious about whether it's sincere or not. So there might be, I'm not saying that 99% of Ukrainian or Russian women online are scammers. Not at all. Definitely amongst the whole population, the majority of them are not scammers, they're not gold diggers. And it's just interesting to see that when guys have these checks done, it's almost inevitably the same answer: you're being scammed. So here are some very basic rules, and something that's going to sound so obvious if you've never been scammed, but it's just really important to emphasize, because in most of these cases, they didn't really need me to do the background search. It was almost certainly a scam from the very beginning. First of all, if you are paying for communication, almost certainly a scam. Almost certainly, I would say close to 100% a scam. If you're paying paper letter sites, if you're paying for the communication, listen, once in a blue moon, there might have been one sincere woman on that type of site, but that's not how they make money. They don't make money if you make a match and you talk to that match, obviously, off the platform. They only make their money if you are on the platform writing letters or communicating, using messaging, whatever, or videos. You know, they got more sophisticated and they have the videos that's in that other video about the 300K scam. So if that's the case, like, stop. It's that simple. That's my advice to you. Just stop. That's easier said than done because obviously they have a lot of, many of them allegedly have software programs that analyze your behavior. They figure out what kind of women you respond to more, everything from hair color, height, skin complexion, eyes, down to what they write. They see what you respond to. You're responding more to a certain type of communication, maybe her aspirations or her values. And then they just learn to mimic that. They also know when you log on more, so they send the letters so it's current at that time. So there are a lot of, I mean, I'm not saying every single site out there does that, but allegedly that's what a lot of them are doing, the obviously ones that run these kind of scams. So basically, get off anything where you are paying per letter or email, anything like that, because the incentives are not correlated to your incentives, and you are basically in huge danger of just wasting your money. Now the second thing is, if the woman asks you to send her money for any reason whatsoever, if you have not met this person in person, never, ever, ever send money to them. Very simple rule. Never, ever, no matter what the situation, they tell your grandmother is in hospital, I don't know. I mean, that's obviously the dramatic one that comes up a lot. My grandmother got ill, they pull all the heartstrings to try and get you to send them money. Next week it's going to be something else, or they pretend they're going to come and see you, but they need money for the visa. But you can do all this online with your credit card, but they need it in cash, or the classic when they have to come over to you to visit you, you have to send them money to buy the airline ticket. I remember on those reviews I did of 90 Day Fiancé with Caesar, he was like sending money and then the girl wasn't coming. I mean, obviously, don't send money to someone you haven't met in real life, at least, right? We're dealing with online scams here, so never, ever, ever, no matter what it is. And it can be something that isn't so sensationalist, like, I need to learn English to be able to communicate with you better. I had a case of that where a guy actually asked me to go to Kharkiv. I actually flew to Kharkiv in East Ukraine, and I went, and she had said she was using, I mean, it was a relatively small amount of money to learn English at some language school, and I went to the address and there was no school there. So basically I solved this problem pretty quick. And then also she claimed she worked at a local gym, and I went to the gym, and they had no one who fitted that description at the gym whatsoever. So basically it was pretty clear that she was not sincere whatsoever. And basically she was milking him for money on the basis that they were going to meet and have a relationship, and she needed to be able to speak English in order to do that. So it wasn't massive money. We're not talking about a 300K scam. I mean, it was a couple $100, but this guy had invested a lot of emotion and energy into it, and time. And besides the money thing, which is obviously sucks as it is, just that heartbreak and feeling stupid that he'd been duped and whatever. I mean, he had to pay also me a couple of $100 to go and obviously go down to Kharkiv and figure it out. On top of that, but this saved him money. So in this case, I did see the value. It got him to stop, and he had closure. I mean, he's obviously suspicious enough to get me to go and do it. And you know, in that case, he also had suspected, because the language school didn't really seem to be at that address, and that was strange. I mean, she could have been a lot smarter and actually, you know, used a real address. Then I'd have to go and see if she's a student. Maybe they wouldn't have been willing to tell me, and it wouldn't have been as easy to verify. But the golden rule is never, ever, ever send money to someone you haven't met over the internet, or, I mean, obviously people sending it, I think Western Union, whatever. So that seems pretty obvious to any guy who's never been lured into these kind of traps. I'm not saying the guys are stupid who get duped by this. They're often extremely successful in other parts of like business and whatnot. And whatever it is, they just get manipulated by this fantasy story online, because a lot of these women, they become their ideal woman, wife, potential wife, whatever, because the software learns their behaviors and what they're actually looking for. But there are just two very basic rules: is don't do it. And in all these cases where I had to go and vet the girls online and do these consultant calls for this particular purpose. After about the 10th or 15th one, I was like, is this ever going to be any different? I mean, basically, if you have to write to me and ask me to confirm whether the girl is real, in these circumstances where you're paying for communication or you've been sending money online to someone you never met, listen, it's always going to be the same answer. Almost certainly, we're getting to almost certainly 99% certainty you are being scammed. So just stop it. Just don't do it. Same goes if you are in a situation where you're talking to someone and you pay to be part of a service, and then you want to communicate off the site, and they offer to sell you the contact details. I'm sure they're really going to give you the contact details of whatever woman's photo is there, but she is not going to be communicating with you. I mean, a lot of times, and I go into the other videos, you're not talking to that woman whatsoever. You're talking to a team of translators. And then actually one client, I said, listen, she has an Instagram. Here it is. Write her. Just write her on the Instagram. She had no idea who he was, whatsoever. And the website was offering to sell him the contact info. Yeah, I'm sure they're going to sell the real content. And here's the email address. Good luck, she has no idea who you are whatsoever. So again, not worth it. I mean, it might give you closure. I did have a client once who really wanted to hear it. I actually had to he asked for Mariana, my friend, to come on the call just to hear from a woman what I was saying, like, listen, this is BS, you're being scammed. And at least he stopped afterwards. So I could see the value in what we were able to do, but basically it's pretty simple. If you're able to resist being manipulated, again, 2 golden rules. Never send money to anyone you've never met in person, no matter what the circumstances. And never pay for communication, where you're paying per message or photo or anything like that. So pretty simple, at least as golden rules. And you don't actually need, I mean, obviously you can pay someone to go and vet it, make sure, but if it's either of those 2 scenarios, basically you already know the answer. You're just paying for confirmation if you pay someone to go and do that. So back maybe about at this stage, probably 7 or 8 months ago, I started to think, how can I help guys outside of obviously these consulting calls with this huge scammer issue? Obviously, there's a plethora of videos on YouTube outlining all the major scams, not just on my channel, but lots of other channels doing exactly the same thing. So I like to think that just that alone is making inroads, but the scamming doesn't just stop with those, what I covered in those 2 basic rules. Obviously, there are a lot more sophisticated versions of it, even if you avoid that. And I went ahead and after consulting the guys on my mailing list, exactly what they wanted, and I designed Slavic Scambuster Secrets. It was a live boot camp that we ran together, and I went through, obviously, not just how to avoid being scammed online with these very basic 2 rules, but also in person. And basically it started to become clear to me another phenomenon, which goes beyond avoiding being scammed, but I would think just in general, how to succeed. And ultimately I transformed that into Slavic Seduction Secrets, which was my follow-up bootcamp, and both of those are now on demand. Obviously, not obviously they're on demand, but obviously I'm going to link them down below in the description if you want to go and take a look at those later, depending where you are in your journey with dating here in Eastern Europe. And I started to see a pattern. The guys who were able to succeed here in general, outside of a few outliers, like guys who just have so much perceived value, like the guy's 6'3", 190 centimeter male model, and he's wealthy and looks good. I mean, besides those guys who have obviously huge value, they can just go on Tinder and just get enormous amount of matches, because that's the way Tinder works. Basically, I think the stat is 80% of women only swipe on 20% of the top guys, and how it's ranked, right? The types you get all the swipes. So if you're in those very top guys, then that's fine. Also, I have another video about where to find the beautiful women here if they're in agencies or on Tinder or whatnot. Again, I'll link it up above and below. So I started to notice that basically outside of those really, really extreme outliers, and that's a tiny minority of guys who come to Eastern Europe, most guys who succeed, who do well, first of all, they don't come for just one trip in general to the region. They actually come a few times and learn everything. And secondly, they definitely do not have a beta attitude when they come here. So they're not soy boys. Soy boys get crucified, they get slaughtered in Eastern Europe. I think even in general in the West, it's not a good attitude, obviously, to be what's known as a beta buck. But if you come to Eastern Europe, like you're basically going to be, there are going to be piranhas here, the scammers looking for, and even if you somehow manage to avoid those, there's going to be some gold digging chick who's just going to take you to the cleaners over a slightly longer time period. But basically, the guys who succeeded had what I now call real man mindset. You probably have heard, if you're familiar with this region, a lot of Russian-speaking guys, what happens to be here in Ukraine or in Russia, Belarus or somewhere else in the former Soviet Union, they refer as a compliment to another guy if he's a real man, right? And basically he's a guy who's very assertive, competent, able to direct and control things, maybe even a little bit dominating or domineering. And this is the typical mindset and what is seen as a stereotype of Russian men. They're very kind of oafish and maybe not very considerate, a bit rude. So this kind of real man mindset, most of the guys had it, or at least they understood it, and they have moved part of the way towards being like a Russian Ukrainian guy. They weren't being definitely not a soy boy or a beta buck. And they had spent enough time here or had enough experiences to build up what I call Slavic mentality intelligence, SMI. So not only were they just able to project themselves and be assertive, they also understood the local dating culture and the way that Slavic women or women from Ukraine, Russia, and Belarus in general think, the values that are more common in society, and the kind of dating culture, more the chivalrous culture, we'll say from our point of view, but chivalrous in one way and definitely less considerate from a Western point of view in another way. And they had gone through all the different stages. They had obviously learned how to meet women, obviously tried and failed a few times at that. Then afterwards, they had gone on a lot of dates where women actually analyzed them and learned from them. And then obviously had a certain amount of success that then they were building to get more and more success and look for a long-term relationship if that's what they were looking for, or they were just interested in meeting lots more beautiful, sincere Slavic women when they were here. But they had those two elements. And the reason this is important is because, after I did these consulting calls where basically I had to confirm the guy's worst fears, I realized, what do they do next? Because they don't have nearly ever these two characteristics. They don't have a real man mindset, and they don't have Slavic mentality intelligence, SMI. So confirming their worst fears and stopping them, obviously, from wasting their money, emotions, and time on the scammers, on the online scams and stuff, was only really the first step that, if you have been a victim of an online scam, or you just haven't been succeeding in your dating life here in Eastern Europe, you're going to have to learn those two elements almost certainly in order to be successful and find beautiful, sincere, genuine women that are a good fit for you over the long term. That's why I developed, obviously, Slavic Seduction Secrets as a follow-up course. It's my now flagship course for dating in Eastern Europe. And kind of the third element I want to say that you're going to need is you got to be willing to do the work. Now, there's another YouTuber whose name is Rich Cooper, and he always says that's one of his mottos, do the work. And it's in general, it's not about Eastern Europe. And it had me thinking when I was listening, do the work, but we all want to be smarter. What are these, I guess, introduction sites or dating sites doing? They're kind of giving you a little bit of a shortcut, because obviously you can start the relationship, if it were real, before you come here. And I'm a big fan of like hacks and taking shortcuts. I remember when I was back studying to be a lawyer, I actually used a hack myself that sped up my career dramatically, and that was that as an Irish educated lawyer, there was an agreement between the New York Bar. So as a lawyer, you have to get a qualification after you study at university. You have to become a member of a bar in order to practice. And I was able to, because of an agreement, go and actually sit the exam. I mean, there were a series of exams over 2 days that were super, super hard. I had to prepare for a few months. I did nothing other than study New York law and obviously US law for a few months to do it. But then I was actually, a few months after that, obviously got my results, and you have to be sworn in, go to Albany. I wish I went to Albany in upstate New York to do it. That meant I was already qualified. And then as a result, I could actually start working as a lawyer under certain conditions. And then there was like another agreement with the Irish Solicitors Association. I actually think, what are they called? Law Society it's called. And then you could be a US lawyer and then take another set of exams and suddenly be an Irish lawyer as well, and obviously EU qualified. That was the real key thing. But I could already start working as in a law firm immediately in Europe, basically. And that's what I actually did. So that sped up my career probably 2 to 3 years. So that's a great hack, right? So they're the kind of things that are obviously super cool. But again, I had to do the work. I actually had to go and study like for a few months and get all those exams in both of those two jurisdictions to be able to qualify. And I remember being on the phone with other lawyers who just couldn't understand what I'd done even, because they were like, yeah, you have to do your apprenticeship in Ireland in order to become qualified. And I was like, no, I'm already here working. You go do your apprenticeship and all that for 3 years and get paid maybe about 15-20% what I'm getting paid at the moment if you want to, but that's a hack. So that's a hack that works, but listen, it's never for free. It's never that easy. You're basically going to have to put in the work and take advantage of that. So one of the big things to do, obviously, as a hack is to get off your ass and come over here and actually come in person and start to meet women in real life here. And of course, you can still meet them online. You can meet them on a dating site. All these things, all these ways of meeting women are just creating opportunities, like warm leads for you in order to meet women. They're not developing, they're not the end goal, I want to say. So like you can go on Tinder and you can have success. You can build a social circle here. You can have success with that. There are pluses and minuses to that. You can use a dating site or matchmaking. They're going to introduce you to people. They might be good, they might not be good in general. It doesn't seem to be super best for most guys. For some guys, I think it can still work. You can go walk around here in the port of Odessa and just stop and chat to girls and meet them that way. It's called day game. Or you can go out, like most guys do, go out bars, clubs, party, and meet women socially. Normally, there's a lot of alcohol and stuff. It's not ideal at times. But you see, all of those are opportunities to meet women. Just creating the opportunities, it's all it's doing. It's not allowing you to actually get your goal. Whatever that happens to be, maybe it's to meet someone and get married, maybe it is to have multiple relationships here, short, long, whatever. This is a judgment-free channel on that point. And you are going to need those elements of real man mindset and Slavic mentality intelligence in order to succeed at that. In person with my clients, I had clients who actually got married, even though I don't run a matchmaking service, I don't run a marriage agency, and they met them on Tinder. Yes, they did meet them on Tinder. They met them from going out clubbing, so night game and Tinder game, we'll call it a dating game. So it's not really so important where you're going to meet the woman or women that you're planning to date here. What's really important is actually being able to create attraction. Obviously, this video is about scamming, not get scammed. So the big thing about Slavic Scam Buster Secrets was, like, basically if you get distracted by all the scammers, that's 80% of your time gone. So you're going to have 20% of the time. Obviously, it's a 80-20 rule, operating efficiency. And you just have to create so few options compared to what you could. So that is the real value in obviously avoiding the scammers. And obviously don't waste emotion and years of energy into the wrong person who's just basically out to rob you blind. The question is then, how are you going to learn these principles, after that first step of obviously setting up some leads? And frankly, if you're trying to learn from someone who hasn't reached the goal that you want to meet using the techniques or strategies that they advocate, so maybe they did, we'll just take one metric is to get married, but they're advocating, say, using their marriage agency. And they didn't actually meet their wife via a marriage agent. In fact, they might have failed a lot doing it that way. Then can they really teach you how to meet your wife, obviously through a marriage agency? And it could be something else, it doesn't have to be a marriage agency. And there are some guys who do that, they did meet their wives through that and they set up companies, and that's at least an indication that for them it worked. But if they come with a beta mindset, which a lot of Western guys do, they can only really teach you to be a beta buck as well. And if you don't see that they manage to succeed by being a beta buck, which is like zero chance almost in this part of the world, then that is probably going to be your result as well if you follow them. And beta bucks, believe me, they get scammed a lot, and they may even end up just with like a gold digger at best at the end of the day. And if you're trying to avoid the gold diggers, of course, if you want a gold digger, that's completely fine, but most guys actually want to avoid those. And here in Ukraine, despite the reputation, most women are not gold diggers. in general in the society. It's just that those women look for the low-hanging fruit of guys they find easy to scam, or the beta bucks who come in here desperate to find a wife and go home on the plane, whatnot. So Slavic Scambuster Secrets, I have it below in the description. It's on demand at the moment. I also included a guide for getting your money back from scammers from here in Eastern Europe. If you've been scammed online, I'll run you through the options. Of course, there's no guarantee you'll ever get your money back, but there is a possibility, and some guys have gotten some of their money back at least. So if you haven't been scammed for a lot of money, it's probably worth investing in it just to get that. It'll run you through everything. Better probably than just having a call with me at the start is to actually go through it and understand what the dynamics are and how scams work, so that you're not a victim of them in the future as well going forward. And then as part of it, we can jump on a brief call together. It's included in that program, where we can work on not just whether you've been scammed or not, because probably that's going to be the case, unfortunately. If you are worried about a particular woman, probably, but not certainly. Obviously, we've dealt with the most obvious cases in this video. But more importantly, we're going to figure out a strategy for you going forward, because for a lot of guys, and I did have one consulting client who was like this was not the region for him. And also one guy was actually on the regional boot camp as well. And it was just a very simple test. I got him to go and look on Tinder and see how many matches he was getting, what were the quality, how engaging were the women, and he was basically getting none. He was only getting them on these PPL sites. I said, listen, the reality is, even though it's tough to tell you, is like, just women here, the kind of women you're looking for, they're not apparently interested in you in this region. And afterwards, he actually went to Southeast Asia and he did meet a woman. So it seems pretty good evidence that was actually the better region for him, for what he was looking for. So it doesn't mean that you can't meet women online. It doesn't mean that you're going to get scammed, but you need to have a good understanding of obviously the main scams. And then obviously you need to be able to develop yourself, do the work, and work on being a real man for the mindset here, and also develop Slavic mentality and tells you understand all the dynamics, need to have a plan. So in summary, Slavic Scambuster Secrets, it is a fantastic way to open up your options by obviously helping you to just vet out all those scammer girls, all those problematic, whether it happens to be from dating agencies, Tinder, real life. If you walk around in Arcadia during the summer here, I had some guys who were pickup artists who contacted me, self-proclaimed pickup artists, we'll say, but one of them was actually quite famous. He was I won't say his name on camera, not to embarrass him, but basically they walked around Arcadia and the scammer girls found them and they scammed them and their clients. So it can also be in real life as well when you come over here. But once you have the capability of identifying them, just like vetting them out with some very simple steps, then you will have 80%. It's complete Pareto efficiency, a Pareto principle that, 80% of your results come from 20% of the effort, basically, is a general principle. And once you eliminate those scammers, you're going to have 80% more time to focus on the sincere, beautiful women that you really want to meet here. And there is a fantastic opportunity to get to know and to develop some sort of relationship with, or relationships, whatever rocks your boat. So that's linked down below. And included in that is my How to Get Your Money Back from Scammers guide. If you have been scammed, it's very good. Just get in on that. That will probably just pay for itself, I think, if you're able to get some of your money back or understand how you can approach it. Because there are ways to help guys with that. And we will figure out together exactly your plan of attack going forward in terms of how you're going to approach dating in this region, give you a real plan for success and push you in that direction, get you out of the scammer zone and over to the success zone. So that's the end of today's Vodka podcast. It is fantastic that the weather is so much better. It's actually got some soft sunlight coming from over the Potemkin steps, the famous steps from early Soviet cinema. See you very soon in the next video. Do побачення, до свидания from Odessa, Mama, Ukraine.
SAR Experience.